to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, we're grateful of our heads before thee at the beginning of the city council meeting. Grateful for the blessings that has bestowed upon us and the blessings that thou hast bestowed upon this town. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to discuss these matters, the city's issues this evening. Pray that we will have the wisdom that we need to make the decisions that are right for this community. And pray that we might have thy spirit to guide and direct us. And we give thee thanks for our blessings and ask for this favor in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Gary and Joey. If anybody else has a statement of belief or any other prayer they'd like to share with us, please come forward. All right, we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. Everybody had a chance to look at the agenda and look at it? Any changes we need to make?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda order.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any disclosures, declaration of conflict from the city council members? Or I, the mayor, I have none. All right, we're good. We'll move on to consent agenda. Review and possible approval of meeting minutes from September 6, 2023, city council meeting, September 14th, 2023, special city council meeting, September 20th, 2023, special city council meeting, and September 20th, 2023, city council meeting, and October 4th, 2023, city council meeting. That's a lot of minutes, but they're super easy to review now. So anybody have a problem with any of those?
No, they look good. I looked through them. I make a motion that we approve
All those?
all those.
Perfect. I have a motion.
Pardon me?
Oh, never mind.
No, this is just, the minutes. Need a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 2, C2, review and possible approval of city expenditures from June 23, July 23, and August 23.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda item number C2, city expenditures for June 2023, July 2023, and August 2023.
This is a roll call vote. I need a second. Second.
Just
Motion.
quick discussion.
And a second. Yes, we'll have a discussion now.
Okay, thank you. If staff, is there any non-budgeted stuff that came up in those 3 months?
I'm sorry, say
Any non-budgeted expenses that came up in those 3 months that we need to be aware of? Okay. How about
I don't have my
Okay. Okay. How much of the TRE water main break cost? And how was that budgeted for?
The TRE water break, the one that was down a couple of months ago, the JD knows because we're not middle line, we have a maintenance budget for that, we pay it out in the water fund.
Okay. What that cost to fix? Do we know?
I can't go
Okay.
financial.
Just
now, but
curious.
I can get it for you.
Okay. Just curious. Okay. So that's budgeted though in maintenance and stuff?
Yeah, we budget for
Okay.
maintenance, we plan on replacing costs.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? This is a roll call vote. Chuck, we'll start on your end.
Aye.
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 All right. Okay, we're going to move to our city department reports. We usually do this last time. JD was out of town, so we're going to let him get up and tell us how awesome he and his workers are doing. So I think they're doing a great job.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So just kind of reiterate last month, I know we wanted to talk about the water and security and how that goes. Like Afton mentioned, she came and talked to me a little bit about, we take 2 samples monthly all around town. We also constantly monitor our SCADA and constantly monitor our chlorine levels. And like she said last time, we did have a sanitary survey a few weeks ago and we passed with flying colors. So,
And that's the state comes out and does that?
yep, they come down every 3 years and do that. So I think we've been doing very good, trying to keep up on all the projects and just moving forward with everything. So
So the
we
grass, just so you know, the grass looks awesome at the parks. The cemetery looks wonderful. I don't think it's looked that good. I don't think ever. What do you think, Darren? And that looks great out there. You've got some concrete pads poured for the mailboxes.
Yep.
So those are all done.
yeah, we have all the concrete pads poured for the mailboxes. We just finished the bike rack down in Choya.
Perfect.
So that's completed also. We've had a few water leaks in the last couple months, but we've been right on top of those. So we've been able to go and do the asphalt repairs ourselves to save some money on that. We did the small shade structure down in Westfield Park. That's been completed. And we went through and hired a company to come and clean up all the trees in the cemetery. So I think that looks real nice. It opened it up quite a bit. So we have a few trainings coming up. I'm going to the Utah Transportation Conference next week to go up and learn some more in that department. And we also have our rural water that's the end of February. Like Afton's mentioned, we're all level 4 certified, so we go to that to keep up our CEUs and get better training, constantly try and better ourselves. So we have a few projects coming up. The state's starting to come down on lead and copper service lines. So we've had Sunrise go and do some inventorying for us, and they can go through the old as-builds and kind of see what's in our system right now. There's only a handful that we have to go and verify. So that will be posted up on the website so all the residents can see what their system has, what the line to their house is, and what the line to the street is. And that will be a public map. So we're working on getting that up on the website. We're also doing cross-connection inspections going forward. The state's requiring us to go and inventory all of the backflow devices throughout the city. So we'll just be
So
going.
question on that, what happens when you've got an older system that never had one? You know, like older homes that just don't have
The-
backflow prevention.
So the older homes that never had one, they were going to have to upgrade to have one. So like some of the houses, if they don't have irrigation water and they're using culinary water to irrigate, in that situation, they'll have to have some sort of backflow for the irrigation side of it. But I'd say a majority of the homes in Tocqueville, luckily they have irrigation
Right,
water.
because they have
so-
irrigation separate than the culinary.
Yeah.
Okay.
JD, how frequently do you guys inspect backflow preventers?
Yearly.
Yearly,
Yeah.
annually? Okay.
That's been a law for like 5 years. It's just in the last 2 years that the state has said
Yeah.
they want the cities to start enforcing and actually caring about the backflow preventers and all that kind of stuff. So it's been there for a long time, but they're just barely starting to enforce it. But if you're not current with that code, it's the homeowner's responsibility to become current.
And do you tag it when you inspect, or how do you know when?
We have a sheet we fill out, and then we just keep track, and we just have a log. So
You don't do the testing, right?
we don't do the testing. It has to be a third party test.
Has to be
So
a testing every year by
Oh,
a
third-party company, so you hire someone to come and test it?
the homeowner pays for it.
Oh,
We just go out and verify if there is a problem or if there's not a problem and make sure the unit's there. We take down the information of the backflow device.
Yeah.
We tell the homeowner if you need one, you don't need one, kind of go over the details of it with them. And then from there, either they hire a plumber to come install it, and then it has to be tested 10 days after installation, and then you leave thereafter. So
All right, thank you. Sorry for derailing you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. Said some projects coming up. We are going to have the pickleball courts at Santa Street Park resurfaced, and we're starting to get into our fall schedule of maintenance and aerating the grass and fertilizing. We're going to go through and paint some curbs and hydrants throughout the city, and just get ready for the city events throughout the rest of the year. We also have Kiva Ranch has volunteered to come help do some cleanup down at Santa Street Park. So we're going to have them get on the schedule and come help us trim some trees and pull some weeds and get everything looking good. So
That's awesome. Awesome. And all your guys they've all got CDL licenses,
Yep.
right?
they're all
That's-
Class A CDL.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, JD, can you give me the overall status and general picture of the Westfield Park, where we are, how fast we're moving, in what direction? And
So we just got the bathroom plans back this week. So hopefully those will be going out to bid soon. And we just got the playgrounds and shade structure in. So once we get the bathrooms rolling, everything else should fall in behind. So
And Chuck, we even checked today with our engineer to find out where our landscaping plan is. We don't even have it back from the engineers yet. Because they've engineered it and I know we got to use an engineer.
oh,
But they,
Not an engineer.
the original design we didn't like, it was just a lot of money that we were spending unnecessarily, so we're making them redesign it.
so I just get questions from time to time
Oh,
from
I know.
the neighborhood, and so
I
so,
get 'em.
so do I. It's okay.
Yeah. But the
I was
bathrooms,
referring to you.
yeah, we've got the bathroom plans. I think we're gonna put those out to bid next week.
We're gonna get get some bids on the bathrooms, and then the landscape plan, what he was talking about. We put that project out to bid, and everybody that bid it was way over the dollar amount that we had to construct the park.
They were way over the,
engineer's
yeah.
estimate. So we did a redesign because a lot of that was a retaining wall that was on that
West side.
So we took out the retaining wall and sloped it and made it grass. So we're waiting on that landscape and irrigation design, and we should have it back. The engineer actually messaged me back.
Okay.
We texted him during our meeting, but he messaged me back, and he just said that they were waiting on getting the final from Alpha, so they could import that into their plan. So we're running a couple weeks on the landscape design.
Is the pavilion planned after the restrooms then?
Yeah.
The landscape and the pavilion and the pickleball courts.
Or maybe the pickleball course and then the pavilion. We haven't decided.
We ever make a decision on the basketball court down here in Center? We're waiting for a survey to go out?
Yeah, we
For
have.
public
we
opinion
have-
on
yeah,
that?
We have a survey, we created it this week, we got that survey, it'll go out and then we'll do that. So we're moving forward with resurfacing what we have, and then waiting to see what that survey comes back from the public.
Hey, thanks, JD.
Thank
Keep
you.
up the good work.
Thanks, JD.
All right, we're gonna move on to our city manager, Afton Moore. She's got some stuff to report on for us.
Yeah, we actually were just gonna do real quick. Obviously, Public Works is doing an incredible job. We're super happy with everything they're doing. They have their traffic control certifications and all of that now too. And then when he was talking about with the lead and copper, one thing that JD that was super great, the three of us met with Sunrise Engineering, and we actually went through and we were able to get a grant with Sunrise for that, to do all that work. So all the engineering and coming out and identifying the lines and things, that was all done through grant funding. So yeah, JD and I.
Even better.
They helped us do that. So that was really good. That's something we had to comply with, but that was a grant. So, so there's on that. Then the other things that we wanted to talk to you about are just a couple of things that are happening, kind of more recreation, arts, parks type things. The Westfield Park, that was on my list to update about, so great question, Chuck. And yeah, then we have the restrooms getting those bids next week. And then the pickleball courts resurfacing, we were gonna talk about that one too. That was part of my report, just to let you know that we've received the estimates to do that moving forward on resurfacing those. So those will be super nice. There's some of the pictures of the work that the contractor has done. It's called, they're called Precise Pickleball Courts. They're out of St. George, so we're excited about that.
This one is in Jellystone Park over off San Hall.
Yeah. And so the next thing we wanted to talk to you about is what's called the Riverwalk Trail. I just wanted to let you know where we're starting in with that. So in our capital facilities plan, if you want to pull that up, we have a network of trails. And this is something new that we're just getting started in. And we've talked a couple of times about the BRIC grant that we applied for and were successful for, just to kind of give what the next step is. So in here, that is to look at cleaning out, obviously, Ash Creek, and it covers Ash Creek and erosion hazard study for Ash Creek, Virgin Creek, and Flint Wash. And so then moving forward from here, I also sit on the advisory committee for DTAC, the Dixie Transportation Advisory Committee. I'm a voting member of that. And on there, they've come into some funding, both through Utah Trails Network, and then it's called TIP funding, and then some other funding opportunities. And so we just wanted to let everybody know, one thing we are really going to get started on focusing on over the next 4 years, two major things that we want to focus on are open space and our active trails. And so this one, the Riverwalk Trail that's down here at the bottom, this is in our capital facilities plan. It's been identified as one of our trails on our 1 to 5 year list. So the study that we're doing will help us establish, need for some of these trails for lots of different, they'll open up lots of different funding sources, everything from environmental, natural hazard mitigation, all sorts of things, but then also open us up to some other just recreational trails and grants. And so we're working on that. The first phase that we're going to be asking for funding for, we're going to work with the Utah Trails Network, and we're going to work on hopefully getting some donation. Some of the Utah Trails Network, we are going to be applying for the TIP funding through the MPO. And then, and so hopefully the intent is that as we do this, The study's gonna take 6, 8 months, and then we'll hit the funding cycles for that. So as we move through that, we are gonna be asking at the next Transportation Commission, we're gonna be at, or the next Dixie Transportation Advisory Committee, I'm gonna put together, we have started with Riker, we put together a proposal, we've gone through our capital facilities plan, I've added some budget items to there, and we are gonna be approaching them for some grant funding. So just wanted to let you know, and then you, Mayor, obviously, we've talked about this, you know, that'll be coming before you for a vote. I sit on the advisory committee, he's on the executive committee, so I'm hoping that will pass at the advisory committee and be on your agenda for a vote. So that's what we're working on in planning, really starting to focus heavily on our parks and our trails system, just for recreating our open space. So that's one thing. The next thing that we wanted to put before you is something that we've been working on for quite a while. It's,
Can I just stop you on the trails? Daisy, could you back up a second? I know that we've got a big trail system that's being planned between Zion and St. George.
Yeah.
It goes all the way out to Laverkin. Is that Riverwalk Trail plan going to connect to that
It would have to
eventually?
go all the way down and around Conference.
Into
We
Conference
talked
Park.
about that. They've asked a couple of times. I went to those meetings for a long time, and I've had Riker start going to those. The Zion Trails Alliance is part of that.
Mhm.
They've approached us a couple of times about that. We've got some of our own trails that we need to construct before we could enter any sort of cost sharing or anything to bring that traffic
Connect.
into here and connect them. It's gonna be it's in a 6 to 10 year plan, but there are no plans to connect it right at this moment.
I think the easiest way to connect is come off Nephi's Twist down into
Yeah.
TRE and then cross into the highway and get over to
Well, that was the
Confluence
other
Park.
thing with Nephi's
We've met
Twist
with
is
them a lot. We're
Yeah.
super
Okay.
open to that. As far as exploring, connecting the trails, that's a big thing that the commissioners are working on. The county commissioners want to connect the trails, Zion Trails Alliance. But for right now, what Tocqueville is focusing on is getting our trails that are in our current capital facilities plan constructed so that our residents can enjoy them. This Riverwalk Trail that we're looking at, it's going to connect Center Street Park. Eventually, it will connect from Center Street Park up to Westfield Park. So that's the
Okay.
first part of that. So we're focusing on our trails network first, and then as funding opportunities and things come up, they'll be presented to council.
Is there any rhyme or reason for the colors? Are they,
But those are just, yeah, you go ahead.
If you zoom- if you
They're
zoom
different trails,
But
yeah.
yeah, they're just, no, there's
just
not.
designated?
Different
Okay.
trails, that's it.
All right. Is this going to be on the city website at some point in
It
time?
is now.
It is there
It
now.
is
So
now.
we have our capital facilities plan. It's online, and this is one of the pages in it. So if you go to our website and you go to capital facilities,
Is it clear to the citizens that all these trails don't currently exist?
well, that's what the capital facilities plan is. So cities are required to have a couple of plans in place, and maybe more than a few plans in place. One of those is your general plan. One of those is the master transportation plan, the capital facilities plan. And so, Daisy, if you just click on that, if you just click on the actual plan on the website, just so that people can see where it is if they want to go explore it, you'll go to plans, you can click on capital facilities, and you can scroll up and down on this. And what this is, Daisy, scroll all the way to the top. What you'll see is that we have a capital facilities plan, and it runs in 1 to 5 years, and then it runs in 6 to 10 years. And so in the 1 to 5 year, those are things that you expect and you anticipate constructing within 1 to 5 years. And when people pull a building permit, this is probably just boring, but when people pull a building permit, they pay impact fees. Those impact fees then are restricted. So if you paid a parks impact fee, if you paid a trails, if you paid storm drains, or all of these different impact fees, right? Streets, water, storm drains, that's what we have in Tocqueville. And so when you pay those funds are restricted, and the state expects you to spend those funds within 6 years. And when you do that, you spend those funds, you don't just spend them however you want. Those are restricted funds. And you have to spend those on the projects that are in your capital facilities list. If you want to spend outside of that, if you don't have enough in your impact fees, that's when you start looking for grant funding or you bond. And that's how you get the funds to construct these. So Days, if you scroll down, any citizen can see these. One of the issues with our plan if you scroll down, one of the issues with our plan that I've been working on since June of 2022 is prioritizing these projects. We got this plan and it wasn't prioritized, so I sat down with Ty Bringhurst, I sat down with Lance Gubler, I sat down with JD a couple of times. The other day I sat down with JD and Riker and Derek, and we went through this list of his capital facilities. And so if you scroll down on here, you keep going, you'll see all of our streets projects. You'll see this is done based on engineering. And Daisy, keep going. The part that the public will probably really like to see outside of the pictures is that this is where master plans for things like parks and trails and that, this is where they lie. And so you'll see the parks that we intend to build. The things can change from here. The design is not final in here, but it's generally, we'll say, oh, we intend, keep going, Daisy. It's a long plan. But we keep going. And so, yeah, you can go to the maps, keep going though. I just want you to scroll through the maps to the cost estimates. So what happens is you'll see our parks plans are on there, and then scroll in on here, Daisy. And even if you want to pull the one that we have already that I showed you, the highlighted one, you'll see that as you come down through here, you can see all of the projects that the city intends to build over the next 1 to 10 years. It started in 2019. A lot of these projects have actually been done. There are on here, and if people have questions about it, this plan gets updated every 5 years. And this is what it is. When you scroll in on this Riverwalk Trail, it will tell you what we plan to construct there. So you'll know if it's a paved trail or you'll know if it's just a pedestrian trail. But you can see on there, it says that we're going to construct a paved trail. And then you can see the dollar amount of it. I think it's about $180,000 to construct this. That was a 2019 money. So we'll have to get, updated costs and things. But this is how it's doing. So we actually have these prioritized. And so, Daisy, if you scroll up just a little bit, you'll see that our Westfield Park, these don't have a number out to the side. They tell you a project. They don't tell you a number of how that's prioritized. So I can tell you, going through this and working with parks and things, I can tell you that the improvements for the Westfield Park, that's our number one priority. The Center Street Park, that's our second priority. The Trail Ridge Park is our third, and then Tokerville Heights, that's priority number 4. In the order that these are prioritized.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing. So this is kind of an overview of citizens can see this at any point in time.
Do we have a Parks and Trails? I don't remember what the correct
Master
verbiage is. No, advisory committee or a committee or something. Do we have that?
We've had one in the past, but
Yeah, we've had one in the past, and then it kind of went away, and it come back, but it's, yeah. The capital facilities plan is pretty.
You volunteering?
I'm asking if we have some sort of.
We've had one in the past, and so what we've done is public hearings for them. We've presented plans, have done public hearings.
Okay.
We've had the engineers come different times and present.
Okay.
We've had landscape architects come and present.
And
We have had them in the past.
okay, and then on the capital facilities plan, we're working on the park is the first one. Has anything else on the plan been accomplished?
Yeah, lots of stuff.
Okay.
As far as parks,
Well, or just in general?
yeah, they have.
I don't want to go through the whole list, but just,
Yeah, you come in.
and does it get eliminated once it's done on the plan, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for example, we try to couple these with other projects that are happening in the area.
Okay,
We try to prioritize those according to health, safety, and welfare, right? So we have a plan, and generally speaking, we try to construct things that are in the 1 to 5 years. But there are some things that fall in the 6 to 10 that we grab and put there. You can't just make up projects. You can't just say, oh,
Right.
it'd be fun to do this and just make up a project. If you collect the funds, you have to build that project, you have to construct it.
Okay.
And so, but an example of that, if you look at on ours, an example of something that's done that's not even in the 1 to 5 years, in the 6 to 10, we took culinary water to Anderson Junction.
Okay.
Their well had some issues with the water district, was like Haven on the service, it went back and forth. And so we had a responsibility and obligation in our capital facilities plan and just for health, safety, and welfare to take culinary water to Anderson Junction.
Okay.
I think you're on council.
Yep.
We just
Okay.
did that. So you'll see, if you look this up, that's actually in our streets in the 6 to 10, in our water up there, you'll see there's Anderson Junction. So we prioritize that. So you can kind of move it around, but it is expected that you'll build these. And so that's why why it's important when we're watching the budget, we're looking to make sure that we're constructing capital facilities
Okay.
when we should be in priority. So,
Thank you.
Hey, what else do you have to report on? Anything else?
So,
Oh, yes.
then the next thing is up at the cemetery. This is super exciting. So, guys, if you want to go, yeah, right here. What we're looking at doing, and this is something that we've been talking about for probably a year now. And when you pull into the cemetery, we've been cleaning up, we put gravel, we've done the trees, we've done the grass, and so we've been checking things off of this list. And this project is one that this is the cemetery budget. This is where you pull into the cemetery as you turn toward the pavilion. That first row, we're looking at putting in a sidewalk and a stem wall so that we can put in flags for all the branches of the service. So currently we have the American flag and we have the Utah flag. And we just thought it would be super nice if we could represent all the branches of the military. And we do that when we have wreaths across America. And we thought it might be really neat if we had each one of those flags. When we do wreaths across America, they have those wreaths, right? They get presented in things. And we bring a set of them here to town hall. But ideally we'll have a second set of those that will stay in the cemetery, those wreaths underneath their flags. And so we have this sidewalk plan so that people can stand on there. It's been a group effort. The mayor's headed up quite a bit of it as far as the actual flagpole and the designs and things that he's doing. He's done a tremendous amount of work for that. And I don't know if you want to speak about that. We went up there, Daisy, if you want to switch to the flagpole so people can kind of get an
So
idea.
these flagpoles are going to be about 10 to 12 feet tall. My concern has been a rope, the rope beating in the wind. We're going to wear them out. So one of our neighbors down the street, Mr. Walls, builds these really neat flagpoles. This one has a rope on because it's 30 feet tall. But this actually hinges. You can fold it down, hook the flag up, stand it back up. So that's, so we're looking at doing 7 of those in this stem wall, and we could do one for each of the branches, the Air Force, Marines, Navy, Army, Space Force, POW, Coast Guard. So those are the 7 flags we put up. So I've been talking with Bruce about making some smaller versions of these for that. And in the time of years we don't use them, we just pull the pins and remove the flagpoles. So we can just store them away so they're not, we're not beating them up in the wind and the sun and all that. But if they work out great, we want to leave them up, we can leave them up. So they're going to be well built. So I've talked to Bruce about that. We're going to kind of joint build those together. He is, we've got a price on the material. Bruce says he's going to donate his time, but we're going to figure out how to, he's probably watching. So he's going to donate his time. That's all we're going to say about that. So I'm going to help Bruce. We're going to build these, and then that's what we'd like to install out there on that wall. So
Yeah, we're super, super excited about this one. And then ideally we'll put at the side of both of the pavilions, we'll put these flat right there, one for the American flag, one for the Utah flag at the same time. So they're flag holders, but we think it'll be
And
an
the,
addition to represent them.
the American flag will stay where it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be over there by the
Yeah.
pavilion. Yep.
So the big American flag flies all the time.
Right.
But as you come in, these flags will be at that first.
Right.
And then as you come toward the pavilion, last year, because we've been working on the cemetery, JD and those guys have installed flag holders on the side of there for another. So there's American flag by the pavilion and then another, the Utah flag on that side. So they would have these permanent structures, which would be super great. So lots of people coming together, donations, time, materials, lots of things to make that happen. So
Any questions on that?
yeah, super appreciative.
We're in a hurry. We're trying to get it done before Wreaths Across America. So
Right. So that's where.
any other report?
No, that was it. Just was forward. Thanks.
Perfect. We are going to move on to our public hearing. So this is a public hearing is sought on resolution 2023, a resolution of the city council, the council of Tocqueville City, Utah, the city providing for a creator of Boulder Ridge Public Infrastructure District number 1 and 2, each of these independent boundary corporate and politic, authorizing and approving a governing document, notices of boundary action, and from the interlocal agreement, delegating to certain officers of the city the authority to approve and execute the final terms and provisions of the governing document, the notice of the boundary actions, the interlocal agreement, and any other document relating thereto, approving of an annexation area, authorizing the district to provide services relating to the financing and construction of public infrastructure within the district area, authorizing the district to provide services relating to the financing and construction of public infrastructure within the district area, opening the board of trustees for each of the districts, authorizing other documents in connection therewith and related matters. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our public hearing. It's open now. Anyone want to get up and discuss this? They're free to get up and discuss this. Okay, there's nobody up. We are now going to close our public hearing and move on to our business items. Business item F1, discuss and possible action on annual fraud risk assessment. Afton.
Yeah, we're required to do an annual fraud risk assessment by the state, and then as part of our annual audit, we check it for compliance and that. But on this, we always score as high as we possibly can on this because we've put it in a lot of processes, procedures. I mean, some of the questions that are on here, Daisy, if you want to pull up the actual fraud risk assessment, we included it in there so you can kind of see. This was actually done back in April, and we have done our pre-audit assessment, and the auditor is coming back they're coming back on the 25th and 26th, Marcus from Kennington Christians. He'll be here with us. And so we go through this, and you'll see some of the questions that they ask, and then we have to provide documentation and things like that. And so we'll say we have adequate basic separation of duties, and then they look at our policies and procedures manuals and things to see basic separation of duties, that the people who are taking utility payments are not the same person running the check to the bank or things like that. So you'll see it asks about conflict of interest. Do we have policies, written policies about that? Procurement, ethical behavior. And so they score you on all these. They score really high all the time. IT is one where we have done a lot of work. We've put in, servers, computer systems, all sorts of things to just really tidy that up. We have a server here at the city. We have cloud storage. We have offsite storage. So we've really worked on our backup of things. We've got, we have third party, then it moves down into the accounting. We have processes and procedures in place where we have a city treasurer that is separate from the city manager, that is separate from the accounting firm Hinton Burdick, who helps us prepare for the audit, and they reconcile our finances. And then we obviously have the auditor, and then we present those to city council. So we have those 5 points when it comes to cash management and cash handling. Do any members of the staff, 3A, it says, do any members of the staff of management have a bachelor's degree in accounting? We have Candace at Hinton Burdick. My master's is in public administration, and hers is in accounting. So.
Are 7, 8, and 9 optional items?
So 7, 8, and 9. So we do not have, so on 7, 8, and 9, we actually do get the points now for 20. This was back in April. One of the things we've done is start to promote that if anybody thinks there is fraud, they can do that. You can call the ethics board. If employees think there's that, you can call the state hotline. And so, so they actually, now we do get the points for 20. The 20 points on number 7. We do not have a formal internal audit function. We don't have a committee here that does internal auditing. If somebody needs to be audited, it's done by a third party. So we don't have an internal audit function here for that. We have external, we have third party. And then does the entity have a formal auditing committee, which we don't. We outsource that to third party, and that's investigated at state level if there are things that need to be. So that's what it is. And so we have to present that to the council and then just let you know that we have the results back.
We don't need to vote on, yay, you guys did a good job, or how do we?
No, you don't have to vote.
It says possible action, so.
Yeah, we just have to have documentation that we presented to the council and what day. They like to see it on an agenda rather than just emailed to each of you. They like to see it on an agenda. So.
All right, any more questions on our risk assessment? All right, we're gonna move on to item 2. Possible discussion of possible action to add Stanley Consultants to Tocqueville City Engineering Pool. So this is, we opened up our engineering pool. We have other engineers in our pool that can do consultant works, but the problem is like Sunrise can do consulting work, but if they're doing a project for us, they can't consult. So we wanted to add another consulting. We've been working with Stanley on our bypass road. And that's a state job. So, but we decided to bring them into our, so we can use them on for future projects.
Yeah, so what this one is we have some very large infrastructure projects in Tokerville, and we've got proposed things on our capital facilities list. We've got water tanks proposed and some things. And so what we are looking for specifically is two things by opening back up our engineering pool. We have an engineering pool already, and we have 8 engineering firms in there. They're highly qualified, they're great, and they can review each other's work. One area that we've identified as we've gone on that we would like to have additional firms is in construction engineering management of some of these very large projects, construction engineering management from an engineering firm, and also we wanted them to be in UDOT's pool. We have SR 17 runs through here. It saves the city and the citizens a lot of money if we can, if we have engineers that are in UDOT's pool that are already familiar with what UDOT's requirements are for the roads that run through our city. So we wanted to open up the engineering pool to get additional construction engineering management.
How many construction engineers do we already have in that
We
pool?
have 2
We have 2.
already.
We just want to have a third one right
And a
now.
third one, and we want to add a third one, but we also wanted to focus heavily on the mayor and UDOT's pool.
Okay.
So
I would-
so we've got, so
I would move that we go ahead and approve item number business item F2, and take action on adding Stanley Consultants to the city's engineering pool.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
I can move on to item F3, discuss and possible action on retaining conflict counsel. So we apologize for having a little bit late start today because we were in here discussing our new conflict counsel, learning about them. So our conflict counsel, Bruce Jenkins, has decided he's too busy, can't handle Stokesville City anymore, so we need to get a new one. We had 4 applicants, Heath.
Mhm.
So we've got it narrowed down to, which one, so we just got to make a decision on who we want to go with. So. And Matt didn't help us out here. He's too busy with PID, so we couldn't get him. So,
yeah, we did. We circulated an RFP for conflict counsel. 4 responses were received. These were from Roosh and Reeve, Galley and Welker and Associates, Clarkson and Associates, LLC, Barney McKenna and Holstead. So the RFPs were added to your packet, and now we just need to have discussion and possible action on retaining your conflict counsel.
Have you worked with any of these? Have you personally?
Not like
Okay.
retaining them. Or
Yeah,
something.
no, like just in city, anything, yeah.
No, Matt Atkins from Galley and Welker and Associates, I know who he is and that, but, no.
You ought to ask Matt.
yeah, I don't know if we can ask that. I don't know if is that.
I was just thinking.
You can ask, it's a loaded question, but.
Yeah, that's a, I don't know how that would go over.
Matt, you're on YouTube, so
Yeah.
be careful.
It's a lot of great options.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's too generous.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for that.
Your neutrality is impressive.
Great advice.
Any questions? What do you want to discuss? What do we want to talk about? We have recommendations from our city attorney and our city manager.
Do they line up with
They
one
do,
another?
they actually line up
Do they
exactly.
line up with the mayor?
I don't know the guy from what, Galleon, that one, but I
Yeah.
know Russ. I've known Russ a long time, so if he works with Russ, then I'm, Matthew Ekins. So,
Actually, Eakins.
Ekins, my bad,
Ekins.
Ekins.
And he works with
Yeah.
Russ.
But I don't get a vote, so.
Well, can we make a motion?
That's why we asked your opinion.
Yeah.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, let's make a motion, Chip.
I move that we select Matt Eakins and Corporate and Company to help us on, as a new member of our engineering pool.
Okay.
So
Yeah, sorry, Chuck. So his motion was to
conflict counsel.
conflict counsel
not
from
engineering.
Gallion Welker
Yes, yeah.
and Associates and
For a
Matthew-
conflict
yeah,
counsel.
for Matthew Ekins.
Yes.
I have a motion. A second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion about this item? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion is approved. So I guess we will inform him tomorrow that he got the short straw.
Short straw, huh?
All right, item 4, discuss the possible action on ordinance 2023 plan commercial zone to establish an allowed use table for permitted uses and to clarify the application requirements.
Say what?
So Riker, you get, Darren, yeah, go ahead.
Either way.
This is something we've added. This is, let's go through this real quick and.
Really, this was brought before the planning commission. We had a application that was kind of stemmed this, or not an active application. We just had some inquiries about it at the beginning. So when we started this process, we realized that we needed to add to the existing ordinance that we had, that we needed to have a permitted and conditional uses table, which we've added, which you can see that is added right now. Would you mind bringing up that red line, Daisy? I'm sorry, the one that says red, is it? Oh, yes, it is. I'm sorry. And so the planning commission went through meeting last week. The red lines that you see there, they removed a liquor store. Believe that was at the advice of a city attorney, saying that a liquor store is usually state regulated anyway.
Location, yep.
And,
State ran too.
yeah, and state ran. So basically, the tattoo parlor and the tavern were also suggestions from the planning commission members to remove that. If you can scroll down just a little bit there, Daisy, there was also the general requirements were added. Those were stemmed from a couple different cities, St. George and I believe Washington, correct? In Washington. We did basically the general requirements were added. The content of the written text or the site plan. Also, if you scroll down just a little bit, so this is all what you're looking there is all the new stuff that just from the planning commission. The very last thing that they added in there was a setback down at the very bottom. It's highlighted right there, as they felt that the rear setback line, if it was going to be a multi-story house or building, that it would need to have the 20 feet setback in that zone. And this is kind of a similarity of a planned commercial or a PDO somewhat. It has a lot less requirements, but this is what the planning commission, and I don't know if Sean has something additional to add.
The only thing I would say, the 20-foot setback is for fire access. I saw that in Washington City, and also St. George had similar language. Another thing that I'd like to just point out in the conditional or in the uses table, it shows RV or recreational vehicle park. We've kind of gone away from the park to a resort. So that's something that I would suggest maybe looking at changing to resort as opposed to RV.
We don't have a defined term of RV parking more. It's an RV resort.
Correct.
On this,
In the table.
right,
instead of-
just in the table.
Just call it a resort.
Can we just get Daisy to type on
Daisy
that?
to
real
Shouldn't that
quick?
be CS also instead of C in that?
What?
Shouldn't that be CS instead of C for that resort? RV resorts, it's gonna have to be with standards and a permit.
Yeah, we do have
Correct.
standards. That would be
So we have to meet our own standards for that to be.
Yeah.
So
excellent point, because we did adopt RV park standards or
Yeah.
RV resort standards.
Right.
Correct.
So can we just type over that?
we can make that.
It's a PDF that you're looking at right now as a PDF, so
Okay.
we can make those and
Okay.
we
So in the motion, let's put that, let's make that motion that we change that to RV
RV
Resort,
resort and
yeah.
change the type
to C, the
CS,
CS.
conditional with standards.
All right, any other questions anybody sees?
So, I got a couple. Go ahead.
I
Joe. You
do
wanna go?
too.
Okay.
If you scroll up a little bit, and this is just, I think, a grammatical thing.
Well, just right there in that 1012C-2, it says, in that very top sentence, it says planning instead of planned. I think that's supposed to be planned.
You're right.
And then I had a question on 1012C-3. I think this is mainly for Heath. It said down in B.
Okay.
It says any zone change shall be approved by the adoption of an ordinance by the city council, which ordinance shall not be effective until the recording of a final plat or approval of a final site.
Be site plan.
In no event shall the effective date be of any zone change ordinance extended beyond 1 year of the date of the adoption. So if they come in and do this and they don't complete their stuff in a year, then they don't.
Their
get the
zone change lapses, yeah.
So it just is null and void. Okay. So if someone was to sell that property in between that, then obviously-
Hopefully they would do their due diligence and understand that zoning is essentially contingent upon them bringing in.
I guess it wouldn't be changed.
It
until that
very
point anyway.
specifically says is not effective until the recording of the final plat or approval of a final site. It should say site plan right there.
And then as far as all the content and written text site plan, so basically you're saying from A all the way to W has to be in compliance. Like we're going to submit all them items, correct?
Yeah, it says right there at the top.
Yeah.
Those are the requirements that your site plan has to have, and any additional documentation or data, which could include some plans, because there are things other than just what goes into a site plan in there. For instance, if there's deed restrictions, if, let's see, geotechnical report wouldn't be something that would per se be sitting inside of a site plan. So it's the site plan with all the criteria A through whatever, plus some of these other things like geotechnical report, and
Drainage report, everything.
drainage
Where
report,
you see all of those deed restrictions, yes.
a lighting plan, all that.
This is pretty much out of St. George, right?
It's pretty darn close.
It has some modifications to fit our situation.
So, and then in P, it says planning objectives, and we talked briefly about this, is that it's PC zoning is in conformance with the city's general plan and complies with the requested zone designation. That's out of St. George too.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking about. I think they
Actually,
did a
no,
really good job.
no, that part would have been out of Washington City's, not out of St. George's.
Micah, do you
If I remember correctly.
Sorry, which part was that?
It would be P. It'd be 1012C-4P.
I can't remember exactly which of the two it came from. I know that I was looking at both of those.
We're trying to meld it and make it the best possible with some modifications to apply to terminology that we have in our ordinance. But generally, we needed to show, because we had this zone that's been in place for years, no one had ever applied for it, and it's clearly a planned zone, and it will allow for the mixing of uses. But with that type in other municipalities, as we talked about, they normally require quite a bit of detail in their site plan. You've got to do some healthy planning with engineers and otherwise to come in, and when that plan is approved, that is part of the zone change, is the plan itself. And
To the
yeah.
parcel, yeah.
So like you said, it's very close to NPDL.
Yes, it is very
Okay.
similar, but in a straight kind of commercial zone context.
Yeah, so I appreciate the work the planning commission did and the staff, and I see this as you were pointing it out, Heath, as it is almost like an NPDO, because they have to come forth with the plan commercial, and we're going to see it all ahead of time.
A lot of times when you just apply for a zone change, you don't have to necessarily specify what the end objective use is. But if you're going to get the ability to have the kind of the intensity of uses that this zone allows and or the mixture of uses, you got to basically pull back the curtain and show. And I know that's what our planning commission has asked for, so much more. And a lot of cities nowadays are pretty much, their staff is directing them, say, if you're going to do something like that, you need to do it as a PD, as a planned unit.
So I had a couple of questions, concerns on some of the items that the planning commission decided to eliminate from the conditional uses. I know back in the September 13th planning commission meeting, there was a discussion about taking some of these items out. And you weren't here, Heath, but Afton was, and Afton spoke about how you can't just arbitrarily remove items from the conditional uses without a reason. And being here for the October 11th Planning Commission meeting, it seems that they were removed, and I don't remember hearing any specific reasons. And also, if somebody would like to speak on that. And then secondly, how your reasoning for taking them out would coincide with what happened in Springdale with the subway lawsuit that they lost. So if somebody could address those, I'd be wonderful to hear.
Well, Matt's firm defended the subway lawsuit.
Sorry.
So we can get you a firsthand play-by-play right over there. But I would tell you this, what Afton said is accurate in the sense that the only difference in this situation is we don't have any property currently zoned. And so think about it, we're acting in a legislative function, trying to say as a policy, do we want to allow what intensity of commercial use do we want? And the Planning Commission is recommending, and ultimately when you're acting legislatively, you do have a lot of discretion, but we also have to take into mind vested rights of people. And you don't want to create a situation where you've had a zone in place for a long time. You have a bunch of property zoned that way with certain uses that have historically been there, and then you turn around and you start cutting carte blanche those out. That creates a bunch of legal non-conforming use situations, grandfathered uses and things like that. And how is that determined? And it can open up a little bit more of a Pandora's box. So what Afton was saying is, generally as a rule, if you go to any sort of planning class or municipal government type trainings, they would advocate that you got to have a pretty strong reasoning if you're going to start cutting. But the difference here is that's because in most situations, you've got properties already zoned that and may have uses based on that prior use, permitted uses. Here, we don't have any of that yet. And so we really are at first blush, and we're trying to decide as a policy, what do we want? And I know that the Planning Commission did spend a fair amount of time and did think through some of those that they struck.
Just to go
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
step further with that,
Sure.
what that actually does, and it's actually Victoria, it's actually what we were talking about is when you get what we were actually looking more at is the licensing of these once they're there, right? And secondary effects. And so that what we were talking about is considering things that could be considered either discriminatory, right, or things that would have harmful secondary effects. Those are the types of things that we were saying. If you are excluding these, let's not just exclude them arbitrarily. Just pick a few of the things we don't like, or like let's try to have some reasoning behind why we would be excluding them from the list. Are they harmful to the community? Health, safety, and welfare is what we were actually.
Okay.
So more, that's what we were.
Okay.
Pointing
So following up, what's the definition of a tavern?
A tavern.
We may have that in our.
What zone does that fit? It doesn't fit this zone, but we do have a zone for that, right? I mean, that's just regular commercial.
Well, I kind
That's
of have a
pretty-
hard time if it's in one commercial that it can't be in
Yeah.
another commercial. But
Well, there's
Yeah,
a reason for that, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it may not be in a neighborhood commercial zone, but it could
Oh,
be
yeah.
in a highway commercial zone
Yeah, or a planned commercial zone.
or a planned commercial zone. Yes.
So is there a definition of a tavern?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Give me just a second.
All right, sorry.
the largest party place in Southern Utah.
I thought it was your house, Joey.
My house isn't a tavern. It's a disco bar. I'm just kidding.
With the ball.
It's your sphere.
Almost there.
While you're looking at that, I'm good with the liquor store being out, because like everybody said, it's state run and the state does what they want, so,
And, yeah.
but I'm
But
just,
the tattoo, what about that?
I don't see a reason to remove a tattoo parlor also if we're trying to get young families and things like that and young people here. And if you look around, pretty much there's a large number of the public that have tattoos now. So I don't see what the.
We do not have a defined term in chapter 2 where definitions are. I will tell you that, yeah, the only commercial zone where tavern shows is this planned commercial.
Yeah.
So we don't
So-
even have we
So,
don't have.
I mean,
a
yeah,
tavern in
yeah. So I'm
our-
looking at, if you look above, it says restaurant, fast food establishment. So I'm not sure what, I know what a fast food establishment is, but I'm not sure how a restaurant plays into there. So are you considering like a tavern like Chili's or Red Robin or Applebee's? They all serve alcohol and we don't want those in our town. I don't see why we wouldn't. It's also I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, all these that were taken out are allowed in Firelight.
Yeah, they have well, that's a great question. I don't know that they are.
They are in there.
Yeah, they
and,
are, I'm pretty sure.
So during planning commission, one of the thoughts was, do we leave them in here and then somewhat create ordinance that regulates how many there can be, how far away they have to be, that kind of state requires a certain, has those statutes that apply to this. But does Tokerville want to have maybe a little stronger statute or ordinance?
You make a great point. And Reichert can take some notes. We may want to, we actually should define what a tavern is.
Yeah, so I'm with Todd. If you get
In
a,
our ordinance, because
you know,
you make a great point.
an Applebee's or a
Well, you could
Texas
define
Roadhouse
tavern,
and-
and you can also define restaurant with
alcohol
with
license.
liquor sales or whatever, so you could define them as separate things if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Would you suggest tabling this until we figure that out?
Yeah, I have.
Well,
And then going back to tattoo, where we at?
Yeah, we probably had to finish everything in there for
Yeah, we're gonna table it.
special items.
I mean, if you've got a tavern, if you're drunk, you might as well have a place to go get a tattoo.
Yeah,
while you're at it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, however you guys want to do it, I'll make a motion if you want to make a motion. Hypothetically, my motion would be to add back tattoo parlor and tavern, and we can leave liquor store out, along with all the other corrections that Joey made.
with further instruction that
Yeah.
staff should look at
The
amending chapter
definition,
2
yeah,
to
the
add
definition
definitions
of
for
tavern.
tavern.
So I'm happy to make that up to council.
So as we do that though, do we need to go through?
I'm happy to table
Yeah.
that too.
That's great. No, I like moving it forward personally. If we do a tavern, then we need to make sure we're good with state code, like so close to a church or a school or something like that. We gotta make sure we get
That's-
that.
That is regulated
Right.
by state law, but yes, and we may very well want to utilize a definition of tavern. I'm guessing in the Utah code, there might be one, and
Sure. I mean, we know where the planned commercials, theoretically, we know where the planned commercials are going to go, and theoretically.
we
they're
never
not
know
gonna
where
be next-
school's
Yeah,
gonna
they're
go.
not going to be
That's-
next to our school and church and the existing.
Schools, that's the
existing
thing about a
neighborhoods,
school.
but yeah.
I mean, we could have a school pretty much wherever,
Sure.
honestly, so.
Absolutely. So,
Okay, so there's a motion.
What's the motion?
The motion was to strike, put tattoo parlor and tavern back in, and all the other changes that Joey used to talk about, grammatical errors.
Probably two.
Yeah, the two, sorry, those two things. And that was
site plan.
site plan, and one was planning instead of planned.
Well, the site plan was just a
And-
question. The only
right.
change was the planning in 1012C-2.
But there is a spelling check or spelling on the top.
Yeah, there's up there wants to be planned instead of planning. And then we're adding a resort.
Recreational resort.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, with CS. So she's got that
And
changed.
down lower where
And
it
then the
talks
one
about
was just
the
a question on the final.
effectiveness of it.
Yeah.
With, you have to have a recorded final plat or final site
Right.
plan.
It's a long, messy motion, but we got it.
You have it, Daisy?
Motion?
that's my motion. Thank you for clarifying it,
You
Mayor.
want to say it again?
So we're good. We're good.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a question. I had brought up the suggestion about urgent care, dentist facilities, and doctor facilities and so on like that. And so it looks like the planning commission decided we didn't need that in there. And I'm just kind of curious as to why
The best
they
thing
fall
about
into another category.
every one of them is so there's a hospital in there,
Yeah.
right? So then if you go to the very one, it says other uses similar to the above and judged to be in harmony with the character and the intent of the zoning district.
Okay, so
The hospital
it's already
covers-
included
hospital
in there.
covers
Covers
every one
all
of
of
them.
those.
The reason we didn't add those
Right.
in.
Perfect. That makes it, yeah, less words, less lines, less, yeah, just hospital. Perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
so that went over my head the other night.
Any other discussion? All right.
That's what a planned commercial code should look like.
Yeah,
think.
I think it
It's
was
really
great.
good job.
I think you guys did a good job.
Staff and
Absolutely.
Good
job.
Riker and Planning Commission, good job. And Darren. All right, I'm going to take a vote. All in favor?
All right,
You,
Nay.
oh, nay. Well, motion carries, Chuck, sorry. All right, item,
Drugs and tattoo parlors, why not?
discussion of possible action ordinance, general plan applicability to modify the consistency policy. So we have a consistency policy problem with our general plan. In one area, it says regulatory, basically it shall be followed. Another one says it's a guiding document. So we've discussed and discussed and discussed this. So more discussion.
So the only discussion really is that whether we're giving guidance to planning commission to proceed forward with the map and or don't proceed forward with the map by keeping it regulatory or non-regulatory, correct? That's the only guidance we're giving today?
well, that's the question that we've been posed with.
Yeah.
But then we've also been challenged with respect to what the cost is going to be and what the timeline is going to be. And we don't know whether it's $25,000 or $250,000. There's two separate opinions on that. So my suggestion is we need to figure out what's it going to cost, how much time it's going to take for the planning commission to do this. Unless the planning commission wants to talk to that issue.
I'll refer to that guy right there. He actually spoke to Drew Ellerman with Washington City and asked them specifically how much it costs for them to do their mapping and also.
But I'm getting two different stories from Drew and they're coming from different sources. So that's where if someone's telling me it's 25 and another person's telling me it's 250, if it's, pardon me,
Yeah, it wasn't, I don't think
I don't think it's
250.
250, but I think it's closer to probably 100.
100,000, okay. It's, Afton pointed out, okay, Afton pointed out, there is a budget issue. If we're going to spend money. I think it's important if we know it's between $25,000 and $100,000. And I don't know how fast we can get an estimate on that cost because it is going to come out of the budget and it could possibly and potentially affect the budget to the extent that it would require a tax increase. And how much time would it take? So that's what my concern is right now. I would like to I'd like to see it go in that direction. And we've had suggestions that, down the road, we could go in that direction. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'd like to get a realistic number.
And my concern right now is we have a general plan. We've just updated it. We spent a lot of time and energy. We need to get our consistency done and we can talk about passing our general plan. So we've already spent a bunch of money. The nice thing, it was grant money. So we didn't cost the citizens any money, but we have this general plan. So we need to get it adopted, but we need to get this consistency policy problem figured out. Because like I said, at one point it says it's regulatory, and one part it says it's guiding.
Mhm.
So that's the question for tonight. What are we doing with the consistency?
Is there money left over from the grant? We used it all. And remind me, what's the name of the, no, what was the name of the group that did the?
Sunrise
Sunrise.
Engineering.
Is that something that Sunrise could do? What Gary's talking about and what we're talking about?
I think it has.
Is that something Sunrise could do?
The way I see it happening is planning commission sitting down and guiding a future document of, we have a transportation plan, we have a trails plan, we incorporate all them
Yeah.
together. Then we
So-
take it to.
But that's still
a civil-
a budget thing.
To
Yeah.
kind of address what Gary was saying, and I know when Stacy spoke with Drew, he was addressing what they spent for their plan and their map. What it doesn't necessarily take into consideration, that map is a combination of multiple different things. That city has spent money on a GIS specific master transportation plan. They have master utility plans that are GIS right to a space, and all those plans take considerable amount of money and funds. Plus, you have a full-time in-house employee at Washington City who does that stuff too. Plus, you have Drew Ellerman and others within the planning staff who have been giving the planning direction to how they wanted to see things look and grow as the Washington City grew up in certain areas. And so is it the planning commission that will be doing kind of the planning aspect of it? And that's where I say, I don't, it's easy to say 20, but when you factor in how that map looks, that interactive map is pretty impressive.
It's a lot of money.
But it's not just, it's a combination of so many different aspects and, salaries of a couple different people too, not their full salary or anything like that, but there's factors to it, so.
You might want to say one thing. So the plan that we're working on and what our applicability clause or policy says or ordinance says is that it's concerning zone changes and also anything that the city puts in basically. So the map would only be zoning, not infrastructure and all of those kind of things. So it would be, in my opinion, it would be taking the GIS map that we currently have that's updated with the zoning that we have and adding any future, maybe having that be, see this map. So if we were to say to change the general plan applicability, I would recommend that we take out the second sentence in that. This is a general guide for making land use decisions. If you read the rest of it, it's pretty clear that the previous council since 2005 has meant this to be a in zoning, and then the things that the city put in infrastructure must follow the general plan. So we're not talking about adding in infrastructure maps and all the other things. It's just a zoning map. And it also allows for amendment to that zoning map. So it's not something, we've been doing this since 2005. We may not have been perfectly following
Our
it.
problem is that we
but
haven't
it's
been amending
Right.
our future land use map.
And so the difference would be we follow this and we amend our land use map
For zoning only.
for zoning only. It's not amending the general plan either. It's amending the zone map, not the whole general plan.
Can we read that verbiage from Washington Cities? Again?
Afton, the one Afton read earlier.
Can you read that again?
Yeah, because if you want to pull up Washington City's general plan. Yeah, I think it's important to point out, though, that even when we're talking about updating this land map, that's not done in-house at Tokerville. It's done in-house at Washington City. This requires us to hire a consultant like Sunrise Engineering to update the general plan, even if it's the zoning map. We need to just keep in mind that that's an expense to taxpayers, that's an expense to the public, that if the city is approving the zone change, right? If a developer is applying to amend the zone map, that falls on developer expenses. But if it's a city applying, if the city is approving zone changes, the city is going to be paying to amend the map, we'll be paying severance for engineering. Just saying. I mean, we could roll it over in the end with a professional service agreement or something maybe if you can.
Well,
there's options
I just
to
think
that,
it's crazy that
but
the
I'm
city
just
doesn't
saying.
have the zoning map already updated, truthfully.
Yeah,
I mean, we should be.
Well, we
forward-thinking.
go around on about an annual basis and that zoning map gets updated to
Yeah.
Well,
current
sure.
actual
The
zoning.
creation of it, I think the thing is that the creation of it is one thing. It's the maintenance is another, but you can take a look at it. Whatever you decide is what we're gonna go with.
Well,
But
the
if you
thing,
Scroll to page 3. Go ahead, Joey.
Afton, I got a question. while you were getting there, you said where the city is taking the expense of a zone change. Can you give me an example of that? I'm
Like,
not,
for example, I put the uniform fee schedule, and I guess this is for me, what I'm saying when when we start talking about expenses. I put the uniform fee schedule in front of council countless times. I have no idea.
Every
how-
meeting?
I'd have to go back and total it up, yeah,
Sure.
every meeting. You're joking that it's every meeting.
man, we've approved it all along pretty much.
Right, and
Okay.
you have. And so what I'm saying is, there's a history in Tocqueville where application fees are being charged, right? So when an application comes through and somebody applies for that, we charge them an application fee. It's been $250 or $50, just depending on what the application is, right? They pay an application fee and they start the review process and they come through the process and do that. But what's been happening is as we've been looking at the budget and going over these and actually digging in and line by line, I audit that thing all the time and put it back in front of you. What's been happening is that there's an application fee for sure, but we have historically, I mean, I've only been here for 2 years, just over 2 years now. And so for years prior to that, on that uniform fee schedule, it's not accounting for staff time or for professional services. The city has a professional service agreement that will say, hey, if your fees for us to have our engineering firm review it, if your fees for legal or your fees for that, if they're over what this application fee is, you should pay those. But there was no process in place where those were being collected, right? So when you see the uniform fee schedule come before you, it's because I'm sitting down with staff and saying, how long is this actually taking you? How long is this doing? That's how you have development pay for development. We have to make sure that the fees that we are charging are covered.
Right.
So are you saying,
I-
Afton, though, there would be a professional service element to having to outsource to the applicant if they get a zone change?
Yes.
We're gonna have to go to Sunrise Engineering and say, please now update our GIS map to show this 5 acres in orange.
Well, no, that's
versus
gonna be
yellow.
part, that should be part of the
This will be-
application fee
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
amendment.
This is what we're saying,
Yeah,
that's why
it's just
you
an
come
add.
before you in planning. commission,
Right.
I say, hey, this application fee was $250. What we're finding is to process this application all the way through, this is actually costing us.
Well, no, I understand. Yeah.
And so it's a budgeting issue. So I'm
Okay.
just saying, there are things to work out, but I'm not saying it can't be overcome. I'm not saying that it can't be figured out. But what I'm saying is we need to make sure that as we're processing these things, that the applicant is bearing the burden of whatever this expense is.
Yeah.
Not the city.
Well, no, I understand that.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I appreciate you bringing all the uniform fees that we're updating it, so we are getting reimbursed and we are doing that. But what you said was that the city is not being reimbursed for people that come through with a zoning change that's not a developer. So that's the part that I'm having trouble
Well,
understanding.
what I'm saying is.
Specifically, that's the question I want to answer.
We're collecting fees for a zone change application, right?
Okay,
We have a professional service agreement. So what we're putting a policy in place is that there will be no approvals or anything like that until they have paid for that.
sounds great. So that's really a moot point than what you just said, your argument.
No, not really.
We're gonna just need to factor in.
By
We're
application.
gonna, if we're gonna have a more sophisticated
Okay,
future land use map, there's gonna be an additional cost of updating that and maintaining
Perfect.
that, so.
so we just add it through like we're adding all the other fees.
Yep.
Washington
perfect.
City is a lot different than Tocqueville City. So I would venture to say that it would be a lot easier for us to do the zone changing than.
Well,
it would be.
after a zone change goes through, we already have to update our map anyway, correct?
Yeah, but we're doing it kind of in bulk,
Yeah.
like annually.
And that's the question that staff is continually asking is, how do we know in advance what the total cost of the zone change is?
Yeah.
How do we know? How do we know how long we're looking at that? Honestly, how do
You
we
guys
know
have-
the total cost? How do you estimate the total cost of
I mean, if-
an applicant's zone change
Sure.
in advance? We don't know how many times we're gonna be talking to them. We don't know how many times they're coming through JUC. We don't know we don't know in advance. That's why we have planning, right? Why we have a professional service agreement. So it's not necessarily a moot point. It's something that we try to.
Sure, I
balance
understand,
the best
I understand
we
that,
can.
and those are all pass-through things that we can pass through to whoever's coming in for the zone change. They can pay for the staff work, they can pay for the map update. They can that can be passed through to whoever it is that wants this zone change. I guess it's gonna be, I mean, I guess we're gonna have to talk to different cities around us and find out how they're charging to be reimbursed if we don't know what that cost is gonna be to start with. But eventually, as we do more and more, then we're gonna get a better understanding of what we need to charge, whether we're charging not enough or too much.
Well, that's
And
what-
that'll be somewhat of a trial and error, I guess,
There's a
but
lot of unplanned costs
Wait.
that it just happens. This,
Yeah, it
how
just
much
happened.
time have we spent on
didn't
the
need that.
Litchfield zone change request? We spent hours and hours and hours on those requests and so on, and it's hard to quantify the cost of.
Right, and what I'm saying is things that are a little more, and that's what I'm saying, Todd, is that we've actually gone through and done that, exactly what you're talking about.
sure.
Too many, I mean, I don't even know how many times. We've put it before you on the fee schedule every time we've done that. So
Sure.
We've done it over and over and over and over. So, yeah.
Get that verbiage from the other one. We're almost there.
Yeah, pull it up. If
You
you
good?
go to Washington, just go to, I think it's on page 3.
I would like to know with Sean and Stacy are here. I would like to know if they've looked at this verbiage that's written in this one.
Amending the plan, or are you
Just
looking
pull
at
it-
the
just pull it up.
policy?
The policy on the side.
Thank you, Daisy.
Plan policies.
There you go.
Someone want to read it?
Number one, do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
I can see it pretty good from here. Number one, the general plan and the zoning ordinance shall conform to one another. Number two, the general plan will be comprehensively reviewed at least every 5 years or when major changes occur in the community. Number three, the city council and planning commission are committed to let the zoning and other development proposals be guided by the general plan. Number four, all zoning and use decisions, including the development of streets, parks, utilities, and the provisions of public service, shall be consistent with the general plan, including the maps, goals, and policies. Number five, a development proposal in conflict with the general plan should not be submitted or supported unless there are special circumstances and a clear justification for deviation. Number six, major deviations from the general plan require that the general plan be reviewed and amended in advance through a public hearing process.
So if we go back up to number 4 and we just basically say that all zoning and land uses and take out the streets, I mean, we could put some parks in there, utilities. We remove them sections that would just be for zoning, the zoning map. What does the planning commission?
I'm going to say this, and that's the state requires that the city follow the general plan.
There's a specific section in the state code that says when you adopt a general plan, all city buildings, all city streets, anything that we initiate, we need to do it in strict compliance. We have to.
Oh, that makes that even more.
Yeah.
That's why you see that language frequently in a lot of different cities, general plan applicability statutes. But what you don't oftentimes see, like Washington cities and ours, it says and zoning. And that's where we have to say, okay, then how do we make our zoning decisions comply with our general plan when our general plan has a future land use map that's way too general to effectuate? So, and the planning commission decided, they talked about it at length, at least in 2 meetings that I'm aware of, and they've decided their recommendation to the council is we would like to see more specificity in our mapping, and we would like to keep this strict compliance for zoning. Is that?
That is it. Yeah. And I do say that we, to me, the only thing that's really in conflict is that second line in the first sentence of our applicability clauses or ordinance that says a general guide for making land use decisions. So if you take that out and you say the city general plan is general plan for the community, leave the rest out, and then it describes the community's physical and that. Down below, the consistency policy very much is like what Washington City has on their general plan in their policy rules for the general plan. So the 10.7.2 kind of says the same thing there.
If we added in 10.7.2 some of the verbiage out of the policy, especially the last two things, to where the general plan would be a regulatory guiding document.
It really,
and
if you
add that in there, then
if you read it, it sounds very much like those policy
But
on
Sean,
the
I
general
would tell you,
plan.
if you go back to that section 4, it does give Washington City's council
Number
some,
5.
number 5, some discretion if they determine that there is reasons to approve something that is contrary, they can do it.
And our ordinance allows that through zone amendment. And it says
Yeah.
that
Oh, I get that.
to do that,
I'm
we
just
can
saying,
do
but our
that.
ordinance says shall, and they've got a very specific thing in here in their policy where it does, and I know that they've invoked that because it's their discretion to say, well, we don't think this is a critical change in our, I've even represented a property owner in Washington City and argued, hey, 2 acres is not enough to constitute a material change in the general plan. You're going to make my clients go through a full-blown general plan amendment and then a zone change on a 2-acre piece of property. It's got commercial here and industrial here, and it's zoned open space in between. It's got to be somewhere in between there, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's where the ability, if the city sees an amendment that needs to be made to the general plan, and if something similar to that, it does allow you to do those things, or you still have to go through the zone change amendment to the map and also general plan, but that's just a map, which is a 2-step process, which allows, and I think that was one of the arguments or the ideas that Planning Commission had, was that it allows the city to come in, or the people in the city to have a say in how their city develops.
General plan amendments require public hearing at city council and planning commission. And then you would, on top of that, you'd have to then go to the zone change, which requires a public hearing at the planning commission. So it's a 3 public hearing,
Yeah.
a 2-step, 3 public hearing process.
And I'm okay with that, having the public.
Yeah, we're all okay with that.
Number 6, it says major deviation.
Major, yeah.
Right.
And that's where I see
Yeah.
the Washington City Council can say, well, I don't think this is a major deviation. So we're going to allow you just to do a zone change. We're not going to amend our general plan map.
Exactly, and I don't think that Tocqueville would need to, if you've got
Well,
commercial, then you go to.
It is kind of a
That's
loophole.
pretty darn close.
It's a loophole that creative attorneys like myself have tried to even argue in the past. And that's all I'm saying to you is ours doesn't give that kind of loophole. Ours is shall. All zoning shall comply with the general plan. And there isn't that. I guess what I'm saying is, do we want to have ironclad with no loophole? Do we want to have, that seems to me like to be a little bit of a loophole where the council can utilize its discretion, whether it's major or minor.
But it still forces the general plan as a regulatory.
Yeah, it is still regulatory.
To amending zone changes.
So this is just for guidance to the planning commission. It's
Yeah.
not actual motion.
Yeah, there's not an ordinance that amends the consistency policy 1072 that is properly before you guys tonight, because there has not been a recommendation from the planning commission.
But we don't need to make a
Actually, there has been a did we make a formal recommendation to not approve that ordinance and to keep strict compliance?
no.
I can't remember what the
That
formal
didn't
action.
No.
No, that's
I
never
haven't
been
seen
happened.
one.
The only thing that
So
we're
it's-
looking at today
It's
is
just guidance.
if we're gonna
Just guidance.
monetarily go down that road with the map.
Whether we want it.
And if it was me giving guidance, and I know there's people in this room that aren't going to like this, but I would say proceed forward as the planning commission said, but I would like the planning commission to look at some of this verbiage, especially 5 and 6, to allow the city council some discretion.
Yes, for sure.
That would be my
I agree.
guidance.
Yeah,
What
I
is-
think that's a good mix in between. Where
what does this do with our grant that we've got?
This is fine, what they're talking about is just.
I know, we need to adopt our general plan. I mean, it's
Well-
just something we need to get
Well,
going.
we have a general plan in place.
Right.
We haven't adopted the new one.
Right.
I would say, depending on what we're being told by Sunrise or whoever
We'll go get an estimate.
yeah.
I mean, we'll get.
But
an
all I'm
estimate.
saying is that either we can wait until a more detailed futures land use map can be.
We can just amend the map at any time. We can approve the general plan if it fits,
Okay.
and we can amend the map at
But I
2
don't,
weeks, 3 weeks, whenever. Right?
If it's only gonna be 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say you bet.
2 months,
Months,
2
a
years,
year.
it doesn't matter.
If it's gonna be 8 months,
We
that's
can.
just leaving us with an inconsistency that can be used as a sword against.
Well, we can change some of that language there, but in the meantime, let's get to work. We can get to work on the map.
So I think we would ask, what I would say is let's ask planning commission to look at 1017-2, is that what it is?
In 7-2.
And,
And 10.7.1.
Think about,
and look at the
Yes.
consistency policy and put some of the verbiage in that policy that reflects the direction we want to go, especially 5 and 6 of the other one. And then we'll start working down that road for the map. That's what I
and
would.
staff needs to go out and start soliciting proposals
Yeah,
to
I'll meet with
get
Sunrise.
us a more detailed.
Does it require a motion?
And-
Or just, do we just tell everybody?
That's my recommendation from me, if you
I
guys.
think that's what
I like
planning
that.
commission needed to know
You
is
can do
what
it. You
what
can do a full
direction we need
motion
to
to that
send
effect
them.
if you want.
Well, and also in regards to the general plan that we're working on, we didn't want to send something up that without having direction and not knowing which direction to take the general plan. So, yeah, the general plan will be on hold, I guess, until we figure out the mapping and
Yeah, it seems crazy for like what Attorney Snow said, that the state is telling us it must be a guiding document and we're not using it as the guiding document for the
Well,
roads.
Well, does
right?
the state say must be
But
guiding? or
but
does it
the
say
word
it doesn't?
guiding.
What
the
did you
word
just say a
guiding
minute
is-
ago?
It's guiding.
The state statute says that the municipalities by ordinance can determine
If
the
it is.
effect.
how their general plan is.
I misunderstood that. That would be my direction. I don't know if the rest of the city council approves or agrees with that or not.
I agree with that.
I agree.
So how long will this take? And in the meantime,
I
do
don't
we
think
put a
we need a motion. I
moratorium
think-
on zone changes so we can?
If someone comes in for a zone change and then we still have this in place, then they can make an amendment to the current general plan. They can apply to make the amendment.
I like it.
All right, we have direction. Clear as mud, Sean?
Sean, let's get a pending ordinance
I like
going on that, on those changes so
Riker.
that if
Riker
someone
needs
does
a big
come,
part of that.
we can say, we
Wait,
have a
can
pending
we just
ordinance.
revisit on Washington Cities 5 and 6 and just see if you, just right now while you're giving direction, if you have anything you want different in the verbiage in that? Want anything different than 5 and 6, or
I
are you,
like a lot of that.
are you expecting
entire
a copy
policy.
and paste?
Their policy
I
really
think,
makes sense.
I think we could
You want to take the whole policy
take
and
pretty
drop it in?
close to their policy. with a
Drop
few
it in
minor
Our
modifications,
consistency
and
policy.
It's just gonna make our 1072 go from one paragraph to
Couple.
6.
They're not going to get us for plagiarism.
Plagiarism?
Yeah.
Let's see, we'd be plagiarizing
I just don't know.
Steve Snow
I guess what I'm saying is,
or Jeff Starkey.
It's only
No.
plagiarism if the attorney bills for it.
no, the question that I'm having just on staff so that we're all clear when we go back to planning commission, you're wanting to take off of this, right?
Mhm.
You're wanting to take their policy and drop that policy into our ordinance where their policy exists in their general plan.
Well, ours is in our policy, our
Yeah, so
consistency
we're gonna
policy
add
is in
to
our
both.
ordinance.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So are we gonna add,
Yes.
I guess what I'm saying is Washington City's plan policies are in their general plan.
Yep.
Do you want us to add this to both the general plan?
think what the
and
general
ordinance?
should say
That's
is
the
refer
question I'm
to-
asking.
I think the
think
general plan
everybody-
should refer to the code
Okay.
guidance
General
on
plans are
10.7.
amended every 5 years, but if we have a standing policy and ordinance, I think that's gonna last and bridge and go longer.
What we have now.
Changes.
So
in-
we'll drop this plan policy in both the general plan
And in here.
and in the ordinance.
Okay,
That's good.
are we're good to move on?
Hopefully we'll see something next week.
Yeah, we'll get working on it though.
You guys
Notice how
asked
the
for it.
former planning commission chairman says that?
Hey, Stacy, will you get on that, please?
All right, we're moving on to item F6, discuss and possible action on resolution 2023, limiting the number of public infrastructure districts, PIDs, within Tocqueville City.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to table this. I found a few things that I would like to, I didn't have enough time to get to this one. I started at the top and went down.
Okay.
So since this came in,
We have a motion, a second to table item 6. Any other discussion on this? All in favor?
All right.
No,
We're not on the table at
no,
Todd?
I don't want to.
Wow. We're tabled.
You're retired. You had the time to read it.
I did.
Tuesday at 2:00.
Just
I
save-
did.
Save your notes, Todd.
Jeez.
Item 7, discuss the possible action on resolution 2023. I read this in the public hearing. I'm not going to read it again. This is a PID for Boulder Ridge Public Infrastructure District number 1 and 2.
I know we've done.
Attorney
it, but
Ants.
you might want Matt to explain what
Absolutely.
this resolution does and how it only starts the process. It doesn't finalize.
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, it's good to be back with you again. We talked about this quite extensively the last time we were here, so I don't want to unduly repeat myself. Certainly will answer any questions that you might have. I think the first thing I wanted to point out is the major difference between what you're seeing tonight and what we discussed last time is when we brought this proposal to you before, we were only asking for one district. What we've modified, or how we've modified this, is now we're asking for the creation of 2 districts within the same area. And the rationale for that is based on some consultation that we did with the bond underwriters, who are the ones that prepare the financing plans. And where this particular project has a commercial component and a residential component, the idea is that one of the PIDs would probably cover the commercial component, the other would cover the residential. It would give us some flexibility in terms of phasing. It would allow us to issue bonds in 2 tranches instead of all at once. But in terms of the cap that would apply to both districts as a whole, we have not increased the cap. The cap would still apply in the aggregate. The mill levy would apply to both districts equally. So it's really just it's a mechanical change, but it's not a substantive change in terms of what you would be approving.
The
So
one question I have for you on District 1 and 2, is it a 50-50 split on the money, or is it majority for one and a little bit more for the other, or how does that work?
well, and that's something I can't answer for you right now, because that's actually one of the things we want to be able to determine as the project gets a little further down the road. Again, trying to build in that flexibility, right? We may want to put a little heavier burden on the commercial side, for
And that's what I
example.
would, that's my opinion. I would love to see a much bigger burden on the commercial than the residential
Yeah.
if we approve this. So.
And that's fairly typical. That's fairly typical. And I can't tell you right now what that will look like, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that happened. The other thing I should probably mention is splitting this into 2 districts does affect what's called the annexation area. We typically define an annexation area, which means that within a certain area, if you were to approve this tonight, you would be authorizing these districts to be able to annex additional property into their boundaries. And the way that this works with 2 districts like this is it allows us to change that boundary between the 2 districts if the development plans change. So, for example, the commercial side of the project gets a little larger. It doesn't, line up with the original boundaries that were approved tonight. It allows us to annex a little bit more into the commercial side and withdraw a little bit from the residential side. So again, it's just about flexibility. It wouldn't allow us to add any property outside of the aggregate boundary, I guess I would say.
So the annexable area will not be an area outside of the currently proposed district boundary.
Correct. Yeah. And the way we define it in the documents is we say the initial boundaries of the 2 approved districts. So essentially the combined boundary of the 2 districts is the annexation area for both of the districts.
Okay. So they
And
can
so,
move
yeah,
boundary,
Yeah, it's all internal.
boundary adjustment.
Yeah, exactly. And if we wanted to vary that, if we wanted to go outside of that, we would have to come back to the city council and get your approval. So in terms of procedure, Heath mentioned maybe just to talk for a second about, what we're actually asking you to approve tonight. Your approval starts a process that we have to go through to actually complete the creation of these districts. you would be approving tonight a resolution which would essentially authorize the creation of the districts. Along with that resolution, you would be approving the governing document that would essentially be the articles or the bylaws of those districts that would set the limits on what those districts could finance. And we've submitted a proposed governing document along with the resolution. We've also submitted the proposed plats that define the boundaries of the districts. I've actually already sent those plats to Washington County because they have to be reviewed by the county surveyor. And with the loss of our good friend Ron over at the county, we wanted to make sure we were on top of that. So if you approve this tonight, we've of course had the public hearing tonight, which is one of the statutory requirements. You've now checked that box. We would take your approval in the form of the resolution. We would take the plats once they're signed by you and by the county surveyor, and we would submit those to the Lieutenant Governor's office. The Lieutenant Governor's office would issue what's called a certificate of creation for each of those districts. And then that certificate, along with the plats, along with your resolution and some other related documents, would all be recorded at Washington County, and that would complete the creation process. So one of the things the resolution does authorize tonight is it basically, you would also be empowering certain city officials to, if there's any final tweaks that need to be made to the documents or anything like that after your approval, that we could work with you on that. So if there's something that we need to, tweak in the governing document or something before we proceed to the next steps, we could do that. The one timetable that we do face whenever we get a creation approval on these PIDs is the statute actually requires us to submit the creation documents to the Lieutenant Governor's office within 10 days of your approval. So we're always struggling with this. It's a very short window. And so if you give us an approval tonight, it would be our responsibility to work with your staff to make sure that we get all the documents that we need and so on. So
Within 10 days.
within 10 days submitted to the Lieutenant Governor's
Afton,
office.
is that gonna be a problem? Will that be a problem if you're Darren?
I just have a question for Matt. Riker and I sat down with the engineer on this, and we noticed some errors in the plat. Obviously, those need to be changed. I'm sure that the county will catch that as well. Is there a process? Because when I was doing this in Hurricane, the city engineering department, we actually checked the plat as well. Do we have that same opportunity to be able to do this? Send to our engineering pool, have that checked first before, or
Yes.
simultaneously at the same time? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the city does need to sign the plat, but you're of course welcome to do whatever due diligence you feel like you need to do. Obviously, that 10-day deadline does create kind of an issue for us.
Would you rather
time-wise,
have
but-
us would you rather have the city sub that out to its engineer or a member of its engineering pool and have that reviewed and cleared up before we adopt a resolution so that it can go forward and clearly make the 10-day deadline because you don't know the turnaround?
Yeah, I would say that's up to the city. I mean, obviously my client is anxious to have an approval, but we also understand the practical reality.
There's some really obvious mistakes on the plat.
Okay.
Just looking right here, not let alone not meeting the minimum lot size for the zoning, but your lot 2, they have two lot number 2s. They don't have there's some just mistakes.
Okay. Yeah, and we'd have to take those up with the surveyor that prepared the plats for sure.
Correct.
So
I don't think that can happen in 10 days, can
yeah,
I'm
one
not
thing.
sure how that
One thing
works.
you could do is if you wanted to go forward with an approval, and obviously take the advice of your advisors on this, but you could approve the resolution with a delayed effective date. I think that would help us with the statute, but again, you have to do what you're comfortable with. So
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, you asked me I'll do.
Yeah, do we have?
I work for the council.
Right, no, do we have time? I was just wondering if you had time, the 10 days to get this stuff. Do you guys have that?
Our surveyor and our engineering pools, we got multiple ones. they're fairly quick
Okay.
at responses. They're not,
Yeah, I don't want to be
They
the one
don't sit
holding
on
them
it.
up, type of thing if we approve this, but if,
but it could be a week to 2 weeks
Yeah,
before they
so-
get something back. But
Yeah.
then,
I know the surveyor we're working with has been pretty responsive. So as soon as we know what they need to do, I think they could turn it around pretty quickly. So.
yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Darren and Riker, for catching that. These are pass-through fees then, right? Correct? That are going to the engineer and all that stuff?
I would believe so. And,
Well, I believe so, or yes, so. I mean.
well, I don't know that there's an application
Okay, so how?
for a PID.
how do we do this without the City, okay, and that's why I'm asking the question.
No application for a PID.
Okay.
And so we don't have a professional services agreement in place.
Okay, so how do we, I mean, how do,
Councilman Sands, if I can put your mind at ease on that at all, I would just say, regardless of what your requirements are, if you present us with some reasonable costs that the city has expended, we'll make sure those get taken care of.
$1 million.
There was that real little word reasonable. there.
900,000, right, Joey?
I didn't, my client didn't send me with a blank check, so.
Chuck, you had a question.
It's just for a local, and I consider a county local, project like this, why does it have to go to the lieutenant governor for approval?
Because this is creating a quasi political subdivision of the state. And so just like a city is a political subdivision in the state of Utah, a county is too, and your special services districts, like you're familiar with, like Ash Creek and Hurricane Valley Fire District, this is something similar to the same. You're creating a separate, distinct entity.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but the process of filing with the Lieutenant Governor's office is actually from the Special Service District Act. It's the very same process that we go
Okay.
through, so. Yeah.
Seems kind of.
That's
have another
the
question,
reality
too.
we live
Yeah.
with.
Joey, go ahead.
So we've heard in this meeting probably 4 or 5 times tonight that development pays for development. Is a PID development paying for development, or is it taxpayers paying for development? That's my question. I don't know who can answer that or who wants to answer that, but that's my question.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a hard question.
it's
Truly pinned, but
it's a fair question. I think the honest answer is it depends on how you look at it. We've talked before about the tools that the PID has to finance public improvements, and those basically come down to a property tax, which you would be authorizing up to 5 mils, an assessment area, which the PID would have the authority to create within its own boundaries. And the statute also authorizes other fees, which is kind of nebulous. Theoretically, a PID could have its own impact fees, although I can tell you we've never done that anywhere in the state before. So again, I guess the question is, do you consider those things, taxpayers generally paying for development? It's limited to the area of the PID. And so I think the idea is that the properties within the PID ultimately pay, the costs of those.
Whoever ends up buying the properties.
Joey,
Potentially.
I'll give you one other answer to that. I think that if the developer ultimately provides to the end purchaser some sort of discount in the purchase price, recognizing that they're going to have a property tax obligation to be paying that is above and beyond others.
There's no requirement for them to do
But there's
that.
no requirement for that. And how do you police that? How do you control that? There may be some that do and don't. So that's why I say that is one of the harder things to truly put your finger on.
And I brought that up when Firelight came in and said, we want a PID to do this. And I asked, well, are you going to give a $20,000 or $30,000 discount for a building lot? Because anyways, that is the question.
There have been examples in other states that do similar things, like in Colorado, which is very similar to what we do here in Utah, where you have 2 developments right next to each other, and You know, the one that doesn't have the district and the property taxes puts up big signs saying, come buy our lots. We don't have property tax, extra property taxes. So, you know, there are examples of where in an efficient market that actually happens, you know, that a developer has to compete. Yeah, has to discount to compete. Certainly the market isn't efficient though. So we realize that's not always going to be the case.
But if that does happen though, in reality, the new development the other development gets built, your development is slow, and it's at a certain point in time, the city's going to then be responsible for maintenance of the infrastructure. Is that correct?
There's several things that go into that. That's why I hesitate a little bit to answer that. But first of all, I just want to say right up front, the infrastructure that is built ultimately will come to the city unless it's like sewer that goes to Ash Creek Sewer District, for example. But the PIDs are often used, and I think in this case it would be true, used to accelerate the development of a project. You know, we're talking about a pretty heavy lift for a developer for upfront capital to get the improvements necessary off the ground. And a PID is a tool that they use to help with that lift. So, you know, we can generalize and say, well, it makes it faster, it makes it slower. I think a lot of that depends on the circumstances. But what I can say is that one of the reasons for a PID is to help a developer get the development off the ground faster. And, you know, one of the checks on that, frankly, is just the bond market. You know, when the underwriter goes out to the bond market to sell these bonds, they have to present to those investors that are buying the bonds a rational development plan that those investors can say, you know, I think this is going to go. I think the property taxes are going to increase because of the new development. I think it's going to happen within a reasonable time. And if we can't do that, we can't sell a bond. So there's various things that go into
that bond issue. Is why you're looking at two different districts as well.
Yeah, just so we have more flexibility. You know, instead of issuing one large bond issuance, we can break it into two parts. We can do it at two different times. So flexibility.
When, you may have to change hats, but when I appreciate when you came last time and spoke to us on the PID and answered all our questions and stuff. So you may have to change hats on this question, but when, at what stage does all the infrastructure requirements come?
So the best answer I can give you to that question is that the approval of the PID has really zero effect on the city's development entitlement process. So it may help accelerate the process in terms of the developer having capital needed to move the project forward.
Right.
But the developer still has to go through the exact same process with the city. The PIDs don't have any authority to approve development entitlements.
So, okay. So, I mean, so for an example, then the cities, you'll meet the PID will meet with the city and determine, we need the sewer, we need water,
The developer
we need et cetera,
would.
et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, on that same token, I had a couple questions about infrastructure that, I forgot to ask when you were wearing the other hat, if you don't mind me asking. Could a fire station or a sheriff's substation be included in a PID?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, the structure.
Mhm.
Okay, could fire apparatus or police vehicles be included in the PID?
Yes.
Could equipment, say fire equipment,
Yes.
hoses, axes, whatever? Yes. Could personnel?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think the simplest way to answer that question across the board is anything that the city could bond for, the PID could bond for.
Okay.
Because we're governed by the same
Okay, and
statutes.
then with those examples, since they're different entities, then the PID, rather than turn it over to the city infrastructure, that would go to like Hurricane Valley Fire District, and it would go to Washington County Sheriff.
Yeah, whichever one would be the most appropriate.
Okay,
for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, good questions.
Yeah, that's good.
Other questions we have, gentlemen?
I think you answered my question.
Who was there?
There you You're driving, Chuck.
Okay,
All right, so I'm looking for a motion.
do we need?
We do. We have to pass or deny a resolution.
Can we table it if we need,
It seemed like. a
there
lot of-
obviously needs
I
some
think,
time
I
for
think our options
surveying.
either
I'd
table
like
it
to
or
go-
to approve the resolution with a date, with a delayed
Yeah.
effectiveness of, let's
I-
say, 20 days. or
I
something.
need more time to go through this
There's a lot of
contract.
stuff that got
Yeah,
changed.
it's,
Well, then if you feel like you haven't studied it out enough, then you can table it too.
yeah, so I would motion to table if
Second.
somebody wants to second it.
Like in a
Somebody did.
second.
Chuck. Any further discussion? All in favor to table this item?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Hi.
Sorry, Gary.
All right,
You're
motion to table is approved. So Matt, you got with Darren and you can get a few things ironed out and in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd love to be back on the agenda in 2 weeks and we'll make sure we get all those things straightened out.
It,
So,
it may work out well because you don't know how much time you're going to need for the surveys and you could be pushed for that 10 days.
Sure.
So
yep. Thank you.
See on
give
the
us more time to
32nd.
do some homework.
All right, well, that is the end of our business items this evening. We're going to go to calendar of events. We have our second annual Tocqueville City Halloween Trunk or Treat, Saturday, October 28th, 2023. It's at the parking lot of the church at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Veterans Day, we're going to celebrate on Thursday, November 9th. So any veteran you know,
I have a question.
yes, because
Tuesday's on the 11th. Why are
Yep.
we doing it on the 9th?
because
instead of
there
on
is
the
nobody at city office. The city office is closed on Saturday.
Right.
So that's why we're doing it. And what we do is we give out cinnamon rolls to all the veterans in town. So they come in and get a cinnamon roll.
You get two, because you bring M&Ms.
Chuck, I'll get you a whole pan.
You did two
Get your
tours.
kids to make them. I'll pay for it. All right.
ninth. Who's making this? My wife?
I don't know. We have community readiness meeting Thursday, November 9th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. We'll make sure we get it on our boards, the right date this time. Tocqueville Turkey Trot Trail Run Thursday, November 23rd, 2023 at Center Street Park at 8:30 a.m. This has been going on a long time. So this is a lot of fun. You guys like to do a 5K, come out and run it. And then our big finale of the year, not the biggest, not our end one of the year, but our Reach Across America. We have a Christmas one coming up after this, but Saturday, December 16th at the cemetery at 10 a.m. This is a wonderful program we've been doing for the last few years, and I recommend everybody come out. It's very good. Staff does a great job. We have a lot of volunteers that do this. And we're pushing to get this thing at the cemetery done before then, the wall built and the flagpoles up. So we're in a hurry to get that done. So with that, anybody else have anything that needs to come up before the
We don't need to close
council?
session anymore.
Nope. Jackie, anything? Heath, we're good. Afton? Yeah, we're good or, okay. All right. So we will adjourn this meeting at 8:03.
Do we have an executive session?